Hello, this is Topolgin. Today we're going to talk about how to allocate time when conducting a time study, a cycle time, and trying to set up our standards in our ERP system. How to allocate time for personal fatigue and delay, meaning a worker on the first hour at the job is going to perform at a certain level, certain focus. He's rested, he's okay. He is going to produce more than at the seventh hour of on the job. Uh, so we as manufacturing engineers or industrial engineers, we need to account for personal fatigue and delay. There's even regulations from the U.S. Department of Labor on how to account for this. So real quick, personal fatigue and delay is the allowance that employees must make when conducting a time study to determine a piece rate of pay and improve accuracy of such study. Not only that, as I said, this also is good practice when setting up standards in your ERP system, let's say SAP. You need to account for that. You need to account for personal fatigue, delay, and we will see why and the regulations about it. So usually, typically, it's recommended that no less than 15% allowance total for this PF&D is it's computed into our calculations, but some companies use even 19% or more. Personal meaning, for example, personal issues that the worker might have or personal interruptions, uh, a phone call, a water break, a cigarette break. For fatigue, well, going to the restroom, maybe stress, relaxation, recovery, the heat index is really high or cold or whatever, and we don't have air conditioning or heating in that facility where that worker is performing. So we need to allow for that. Between 5% and up to maybe 20% depending on the conditions, but 20% is really, really high. I would say 5 to 7% max, or typically, sorry. Delay, it's typically management related, different than personal. It's some interruptions, maybe because of the layout of the facility, because of the I don't know, the fixtures, the design of the workstation or the work center or the whatever. They are random also. Maybe breakdowns of the machine hasn't been maintained, is too old, uh, etc. They whatever maintenance or the worker haven't had enough training, so the machine breaks down constantly. Instructions, just stopping to follow instruction, get instructions from the supervisor. Management in general, maybe cleanup of the machine, restocking. I mean, the sky's the limit. Even the layout of a facility. I've been in facilities where the restrooms are 100 yards away on a second floor. So obviously, a restroom break, yeah, it falls into fatigue, maybe even personal, but because of the bad design of the facility, well, management should do a better job. Either open another restroom or move the workstation close to the restroom. Whatever. Maybe the facility was designed wrong and it doesn't have the minimum number of stalls, toilets, urinals per worker, and there's a standard for that too. Uh, Sorry. Now let's look at the U.S. Department of Labor wage and hour division. It says that we need to allow personal fatigue and delay no less than 15% or 9 to 10 minutes per hour. And it goes into a couple of examples how to get there, either multiply by allowance factor, sorry, or allowance percentage. And we will see how this math plays out and fits into our computation of our calculations for PF&D. Over here, we will see it visually, then we will see a couple of examples, and then we will look at a calculator. But this regulation, you can find it here. This is for normal, sorry, this one, you can find it here. So it's just for normal, healthy workers. Over here, we have for workers with disabilities, but it does the math and the examples and the way of getting the results. does not only apply to workers with disabilities, it applies to all workers since it's just PF&D in general. And actually, this one that talks about workers with disabilities gives us an extra example. Instead of having two examples how to get to our result, it gives us a third one, a third option, a third mathematical way to get our PF&D right. So let's dig a little deeper into the details of the regulations. Um, as I said before, the law says not less than 15% allowance or 9 to 10 minutes per hour. This is very important. Within the hour, not after the hour, and we will see here. Um, and then employers, this is a very key note. Employers mistakenly believe that by multiplying the standard time by an allowance factor of 1.15, they provide enough. Da, 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 da. This actually incorporates a PF&D of less than 9 minutes and is not in compliance with the regulation. An allowance factor of at least 1.17 must be used. So 1.1765, let's say, must be used and not 1.15. Well, I've been guilty of using 1.15 according to a rumor, right, in the past. So let's look at this. Uh, First of all, let's analyze why 1.15, 1.15, it's not a good practice. It's not an allowance factor, and we're actually not complying with the regulation. Well, the way I used to do it, and many people do it, and many people do it, is they get their 60 minutes of processing time and 9 minutes of PF&D. They say, well, 15% of 60 is 9, so I just add that, and boom, we're good. We have the standard. We can put it in SAP, or we're getting the right piece rates. Well, it's not that simple. Actually, maybe it's me. Maybe the law doesn't say it very clearly, or I see that the law doesn't say it very clearly. But the way to interpret this is within 60 minutes, within that hour, 9 of those minutes have to be PF&D, 51 have to be processing. Because if we just multiply by 1.15, what we're saying is 60 minutes of processing time and then 9 minutes of PF&D. And this is incorrect. And let's see why. Total for minutes of that is 69. So how much, what percentage of 69 is 60? Well, it's 86%, almost 87%. What percentage of 69 is 9 minutes? And that's 13%. That's the first red flag. It's less than 15. It's 13. So we're not right here. We're not complying with the law. And let's dig deeper. Let's get the allowance factor. When we do the math, we get an allowance factor of 1.15, which is not in compliance. And when it says that it incorporates a PF&D of less than 9 minutes, when we do the math, in reality, within the hour, if we use an allowance factor of 1.15, we're incorporating 7.6 minutes, not 9. The law has to be 9 to 10 minutes within 60, not after 60. Not after 60 of processing. Within 60 minutes, 51 have to be processing, 9 have to be PF&D, or 50 have to be processing, 10 have to be PF&D. So let's do it the right way now. 51 minutes processing, 9 minutes PF&D, total of 60 minutes. So 51 is 85% of 60. We're good. So 15, that's the minimum allowance by law. So we're good. We're incorporated 9 minutes. What's the allowance factor? Well, exactly what the law says. That's the minimum, 1.1765. And we round up to the fourth decimal, and we'll see why. The law's got a note of why rounding up to 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 4, it's a good practice. Sorry. Same example here for the 10 minutes. The law says 10 minutes, same thing. 10 minutes within 60, so 10 minutes, 10 is 16.67% of 60 minutes, which is good. Or the allowance percentage, which is 83.3334, which is that's how much 50 uh, what percentage of 60 is 50 minutes, and this is 83.334%. So the allowance factor is 1.2. 1.2 is also by law. We are already complying because we're above 1.17, but this is a simpler way to calculate. It's just you don't have to remember so many decimals. You just multiply by 1.2 instead of the regular 1.15 that a lot of employers do. If we do the same example, 10 minutes after 60 of processing, that's 70, when we do all the math, we end up with 14.29%. Those 10 minutes are 14.29% of 70, which is less than our 15, so not good. And in reality, it's less than 1.17, is 1.16. We're not in compliance from the very beginning. We saw that. And how many minutes is that? It's 8.3 minutes. So it's not really the 10 within 60, is 8.3 minutes. So not in compliance, not good. The best way to do it within an hour, then you do your allowance of 10 minutes, 9 minutes, or beyond if you want to, if your CEO allows it. Okay, let's look at examples real quick to determine piece rates. Example number one, uh, and you can find these examples in the explained in the U.S. Department of Labor, especially in the worker with disabilities, I mentioned before. Uh, so the first way of getting a result is we conduct a time study for 25 minutes, and then we multiply those results by two. Let's say in 25 minutes we got 40 pieces. We multiply those results by two. That means it's as if we time 50 minutes. So it's as if we get a PF&D of 10 minutes. Remember, 10 minutes within the hour. And let's say the prevailing wage for workers with disabilities doing that type of job in the area, in the state or the city or whatever, is $8 an hour. And we know that in those 25 minutes with time, we build 40 pieces. So when we multiply by 2 is 80 pieces. 80 pieces in 50 minutes. So how much is a piece rate? Is $8 divided by those 80 pieces. So the piece rate or the cost per rate is 10 cents. That's one way of getting it. Another way of getting it, another example is uh, we time how many pieces we get in 25 minutes. 40, same example, just different math. Working time, 25, and we get the seconds per piece. So basically we divide 40 by 25 multiplied by 60, right? Which will give us the total number of seconds. Sorry, total number of seconds divided by 40, and we get 37.5 seconds per piece. That is without the PF&D, which is time 25 minutes. Okay, our allowance factor, in this case, we're going to do it by allowance factor. Over here, we did it 25 minutes, just double it and did the math. Over here, we're going to use an allowance factor. And on example 3, we will use an allowance percentage. We'll get there. So allowance factor 1.2, as I said, is very simple to remember. You don't have to remember all the digits, all the decimals. So that means it's 10 minutes of PF&D within the hour. So if we multiply the seconds per piece for this allowance factor, now we get seconds per piece with the allowance factor. We know that in an hour's got 3,600 uh, seconds. So we divide those by 45 and we get 80 pieces. So again, prevailing wage is $8, so piece rate is 10 cents. Same thing. Now, allowance percentage. Very interesting here. Working time in minutes is 60. Let's say we time 60 minutes. 60 minutes of processing time. Oh crap. How do we get uh, how do we get our piece rate correct? Well, we say we want to use a PF&D of 10, let's say. And again, prevailing wage is $8. And but in those 60 minutes, we got 96 pieces. It was processing, no interruptions, nothing, 96 pieces. But we want 10 of those 60 to be PF&D. So what we do, the allowance percentage for 10 minutes is a 3.3334%. We multiply this 96 by that allowance percentage and we get 80. Uh, we know that prevailing wage is 8, so piece per rate is 10 cents. Very simple. So three different ways. Time 25, double it, do the math, or multiply by allowance factor, or multiply by allowance percentage. And this is all according to the law and according to the U.S. Department of Labor website. Okay, very interesting, very important here. A word about rules of rounding, again from the U.S. Department of Labor. Rounding up only when the last decimal point is a 5 or higher may actually be underpaying workers. And this is a back wage liability that could be quite large. So to avoid this, we need to carry computations out to the fifth decimal and then always round up to the fourth place. And that's what I do here in my examples. Round up to the fourth place. Round up to the fourth place. As we can see here, even in the Excel formulas. Uh, very very key piece of information, very key note. So let's look at the calculator I built. Um, we have our PF&D. It's two calculators, two-part calculator. First, we want to determine what PF&D we're going to use depending on our situation and on our facility. And then we are going to get our hours per 100 or pieces per hour, depending on what our ERP system uses. And we can even uh, do more choices or compute more choices than this, but these are the ones I use the most. So let's say personal, as we saw, it doesn't change much. Recommended is about 5%, and delay is about 5% recommended. Fatigue, we know that is between 5 and 20%. So in this case, I put 6.66666% to get, and the reason I did it is to get a PF&D percentage of 16.67% or 10 minutes within that hour. So 10 minutes PF&D, 50 minutes processing, allowance factor is 1.2, as we saw in the examples in the other tab. So now this 1.2 comes here, ties into the second part of the calculator here. First, we do our PF&D. We determine what we want, 10 minutes within an hour, 9 minutes within the hour, whatever. And then we come here and say, okay, we're going to time 9 pieces. And there's two scenarios. Let's say two scenarios I've encountered a lot. Let's say we have a fixture that holds 9 pieces, right? And it's very difficult to time or to time each piece individually. It's better if we time from the time the worker touches the first piece or the first part of the first piece to the time he touches the first part of the first piece of the second fixture. So, in other words, he's gonna load the fixture, touch bars, carry them, load the fixture, process, drill, whatever, weld, whatever, the 9 pieces, offload that fixture, and then come back and touch again the first product or the first part that goes into the fixture for the second um, for the second round of loading that fixture. That's when we stop the clock. But that's cycle time. That's for another video. Cycle time, um, setup time, tag time, and all that is for another video. I have another video for that. So that's scenario number one, a fixture with 9 pieces, and we time those 9, or we time 9 pieces just for accuracy because it varies, 50 seconds, 60 seconds, 61 seconds, 72 seconds, 49 seconds, whatever. So we time 9 to kind of make an average, right? Either scenario is very, very realistic, happens all the time. And I do this because we're not always, depending on the product, but we're not always capable of timing for 25 minutes. Either it's too long, timing for 25 minutes, or um, it's just it's just useless to time 200 products in those 25 minutes. We don't need that. We just need 9, 10, 12, whatever makes us feel comfortable. So let's say we time our 9 pieces. By the way, this changes. If I put 10, these numbers change to 10 and all the calculations. So let's say 9 for now in my example. And let's say I time real time, not PF&D yet, 8 minutes, 11 seconds. 8 minutes and 11 seconds. My minutes go here, my seconds go here. And then pieces time. I time 9 pieces. So time per piece, 55 seconds. And as I said, we're using an allowance factor of 1.2. That gives us a time per piece with PF&D of 1 minute and 5 seconds. It went up, obviously. Then how much is hours per 100? How many hours would it take us to build 100 with the PF&D? It would take us 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 7 seconds. But we can't put that in our ERP system. We gotta do it decimal. So the two decimal ways I've used the most, and I say they're pretty common, is hours per 100 or pieces per hour. So we convert this into decimal and we get 1.819 or 54.99, almost 55 pieces per hour. And that's with an allowance factor of 1.2. We can change any of this if we say, well, our fatigue has to be 5, so we only have an allowance factor of 9 minutes instead of 10 like before, right? We had 10, now we have 9, so all these numbers change. And let's say we don't time 9, we time 10 pieces with it. So all that changes. So that's the way this calculator is built. The cells, the user entry cells, are gonna be yellow fonts and green background. Yellow fonts, green background. That's easy to spot. And usually the tab will say calculator. So everything else will be locked just to ensure that nobody messes with the formula by accident. Thanks for watching. Leave me your comments and any uh, any corrections or any suggestions would be appreciated. Thank you very much. This is Top.